How we doing, guys? Got the graveyard shift over here. So I hope you haven't eaten too much. So it'd be really helpful for me to know who we've got in the audience. So if I can ask you to stand if you're a registered manager. Yeah? Stay standing, stay standing. A business owner, director level, great. And care worker, look, keep standing, stay standing, it's all right. Don't be shy. And who we got here that is actually on the care, as a care worker currently? Got some care workers? No? Anyone else in offices at the moment that are already in home care? Coordinators, recruiters? Fantastic, great. So, and now while we're all standing, and we've had some lunch and we've had the graveyard shift. Should we shake about a bit, guys, and just get awake? We've got too many people around us, but let's have a little shaking of the legs, shaking of the arms. Get the necks going. Right. We all feeling nice and awake? So, what are we talking about today? You can sit, you can stand if you want to, right? We're talking about profitability in home care. Bit awkward, isn't it? We don't ever talk about profitability in home care. And I've got to say, when I came into home care in 2012, when I almost ran out of money before we started making some, it was very scary. And even then, nobody was talking to me about profitability in home care. And I think it's really important to talk about cash in care. I've been speaking to a couple of people that are also in the audience now. We're doing some mentoring work earlier. And we were talking about exactly this, how to get to your first pound, how to develop past that. Now, I'm Amrit Dhaliwal. I'm the CEO and founder of Walfinch. Walfinch is a home care business. I started franchising my business in 2019, and we've now gone national. But one of the things that is the most important to me is about creating profitable businesses for people on the ground, for the franchisees, for the entrepreneurs, for the stakeholders that risk that second mortgage, that risk leaving that consistent job. And I think one of the things I feel very passionately about, and I come to these events to do, is to talk about profitability in care. So today I'm going to talk to you about 5 things. And we just had our annual conference last week and we called it 5 to Thrive. The first thing I want to talk to you about is about having the right, financial support. So who currently has an accountant? Just hands up, no need to stand. Yeah, great. Now, who has coaching conversations with those accountants? Does anyone have a coaching type conversation with those accountants? Nobody, yep? Super. So I feel therein lies a problem. We have a disconnect between you as a business owner saying, great, I'm running over here and I'm going to be investing this money as we go along, but I've got an accountant here that also is the accountant for my local coffee shop, that is also the accountant for my property business over here, that is an accountant for my school and whatever the hell it is. But actually, are we talking to accountants that are home care specific, that really understand actually what percentage of my revenue should be spent on care workers? What percentage of that should be spent on their mileage costs? What percentage of my revenue should be spent on my office staff? So really getting into the granular details, and I think keeping it super simple, half of what you earn should go to the care worker in one shape or form or another. About 10% of that should be spent on their mileage. If you spend more than that on their mileage, we've probably got a problem, and the problem then seeps from the P&L into the operations. Now, I've often sat down with franchisees, I've looked at their P&L statements, and I've told them that they've got recruitment problems, and they're looking at me thinking, what? How have we gone from there to here? Because I'm looking at their mileage costs, and I'm saying, well, okay, that means you've got carers darting around the whole place, which is probably going to really wind them up. It's going to upset people. They're going to think, don't want to work here anymore. And all of a sudden we've got an issue. So the people that have run or are currently in operational businesses who have fantastic retention of staff. Yeah, great. What are you guys up to over there? What's one thing? Can we get the mic over here, please, if that's okay? But shout and I'll repeat it. So what is that one thing that you think is really working well for your staff that you think that really keeps them going? Fantastic. You take care of your carers. So I imagine they're probably not traveling for 40 minutes to do a 15-minute visit and so on, right? Short visits, short distances between visits. Yeah. And often businesses don't learn that they have a problem in this until it's gone too far. They don't know they're overspending on it. So not only will you get better retention of staff and be able to develop that staff member further, but you will also then be able to build a much more profitable business because you, as a stakeholder, deserve that, and that is okay. So I think the first thing is we need to be talking to accountants that are more like business coaches, that understand home care specifically, that know the difference between a care home and a domiciliary care business. So I would say that is my number one thing. My number two thing is forecasting. So back in 2012, when I came into the sector, I thought, well, this is scary. And by the end of 2013, I had come across a forecasting concept, and I was planning my business 90 days ahead. So in 90-day segments, we were planning the business. Can I ask, who has a written down forecast of what the business is going to look like in 2026? Yeah? Great. And do you have a business plan or a format that you follow for this? Thank you.
I do have a business plan. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Fantastic.
With projections, real life, looking at the market,
Great.
market trends, and what the NHS is trying to do and how the future can look like.
Amazing. And how often do you revert back to that? How often do you sit down, have a focus meeting and say, right, okay, where are we?
On paper, every 6 months, or sometimes when there's something new comes up, which can be in between the 6 months.
Yeah, great. No, and that's wonderful that you've got something written down. I think there was a Harvard Business School review done, and one of the things that they found was that people that write down a target are 80% more likely to just achieve it. And it's so true, right? You know, I've had this old book, old journal. I came across it actually over the weekend, and I had written down in there, what I wanted my life to look like 10 years later, and it was actually from 10 years ago. And it was so interesting how similar that was, and personal life as well, right? You know, got married, had kids, living in where we're living, and the business and the franchising aspect. But I think writing down goals changes the way you think. So a book that I would recommend everyone picks up is called Traction by Gino Wickman. And in this book, he sets out an operating system called the entrepreneurial operating system. It forces you to look at your 10-year goal, your 3-year goal, your 1-year goal, and your 90-day goal. And then every 90 days, we religiously sit back down and say, where are we? So everyone in the business has one rock or thing that they're going to do, and they go and do it. And actually, I think it was Bill Gates, but I'm going to nick this from him. We often overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year, but underestimate what we can achieve in 10 years. And if you work consistently hard and think, well, I'm going to just do that one thing in the next 90 days. I'm going to implement that one system. I'm going to move on to that new rostering system. I'm going to change that manager. I'm going to do the thing. And then 90 days later, I'm going to do the next thing. And then the next thing. You will be unstoppable. Because I really believe that actually you don't have to be skilled. You don't even have to be hardworking, but you have to be obsessed. And if you're obsessed with it, and you look at it and you focus on it and you keep doing it, you will be unstoppable. So I think having a written down financial forecast and understand what I'm going to be doing in 90 days from now. I think that is my second most important aspect. Number 3 is my the thing that really gets me going, the £1 million handshake. If you're part of the Walfinch community, I will talk about this every single time I meet you. I'm obsessed with this concept. And I was talking about this, I think, Vivian, to you when we were doing the mentoring earlier. The £1 million handshake. So, in the last 7 days, how many networking meetings has everyone in this room had? So, if you've had one networking meeting for your business in the last 7 working days, please raise your hand. Great. Nice. If you've done 10 networking meetings in the last 7 days, please raise your hand. Great. Give me some skin. And if you've done 20 networking, there we go, 20. That's a Walfincher right there. Anyone else for 20? Right. So, 5 to Thrive. I talk about 5 networking meetings at least on a daily basis. Since 2013, I've been doing that myself, and I feel like it has transformed my life. I talk about this to franchisees, I talk about this in the mentoring, I'll talk about this on my YouTube channel, Amrit the Walking CEO, by the way, if you want to subscribe, please share and follow. I talk about this at every opportunity I get. 5 handshakes a day will change your life. I went from a situation where I couldn't put petrol in my car to being able to go on holiday with my now wife, then girlfriend, quite freely. And it transformed my life. And I still will do it now. I come to events like this and I've got that number in my mind. How many people am I going to meet and speak to before I leave? And it's just scorecarding yourself. It's super simple, but it's so simple that we don't do it. And we're always looking for the substitute. And we're looking for the platforms, of which there are many and they are wonderful. We're looking for the SEO option. We're looking for the AI product that will do it for us. There is no substitute to doing the work. So I would really implore you to take this one to heart. Because actually this is how you'll build your private business, pretty much exclusively. If you did nothing else and just shook hands, you will build your private business at £40 an hour. Truly. And on that point, before we move to the next slide, how many people are charging £30 or above? Yeah? A couple people? How many people are charging £35 and above? Yeah? Anyone over £40? My personal prediction is that by the end of 2026, a good quality home care business should and will be charging over £40 an hour. Frankly, I think, I'm speaking to the Walfinch community about doing that today because it's a premium service, it's exclusive, it's very, very good. And actually, if the cost of a care worker, when you add everything in, is about 18 or 19 pounds, we should be charging at least twice that. And if we're not charging twice that, we can't run profitable businesses. If we're not running profitable businesses, we can't invest in the care worker, in the training, in the right software, in the data. So this isn't about the shareholder Ferrari fund. This is about growing a much better quality business. You can't do that unless your business is profitable. So don't be afraid to charge money. A friend of mine lives down the coast, and he was looking for care for his parents recently, and we're not down that way. And he said, well, made the first phone call, they could do the care, sounded great, wanted £50 an hour. He's not particularly flush, but he's paying the £50 an hour because, well, that's his mum. So he's paying £50 an hour. £50 an hour, how would that feel, right? But you're not going to get there without the handshakes. Either that or the £10,000, £15,000 a month on PPC spend. But this is free. This is time, and this is how you will really move on to the next stage of your business. So, number 4, I think we often look at the wrong aspect. We'll often look at, squeezing care workers and saying, well, okay, we're paying the care workers too much. But actually, often there are inefficiencies in the numbers elsewhere. And I think that actually, if you start to, this is where it starts becoming a web. If we've got the right accountant, they'll tell us, actually, your office is 10% of your turnover and you're a stable business. It probably ought to be 3 or 4%, Amrit. And so then you're like, well, okay, hold on a second. So I can put 6% back on there. Oh, hold on a second. You've got this spend over here on all this technology. How much of that tech stack are we using? And how much of that is subscriptions that we haven't killed off? And so when you really start getting granular in your cost, and then you start looking at how that percentage associates with your top line on all the lines, it will really start to change the way you think. And often it isn't about changing what care workers are paid, apart from the fact that we ought to be paying everyone more. It's often about looking at all of the other costs that are in the business. One of the things that my favorite costs are office staff. So does anyone know, and I may pick on you, so I'm warning you now. Does anyone know the percentage of their top line revenue that is being spent on their office staff? So what percentage of your turnover? Yes, great. 12%? That's great, actually. I would say between 10 and 12 is really cool for an established business. Now, often you'll go into businesses where that number might be double that, and I would employ you to have a look at that and say, well, I've got a business that is over £500,000 or £600,000 in revenue, and so those numbers start to make sense. And actually, what percentage of my top line revenue is being spent on my office staff? And often what that will tell you is that something isn't working in the system. There is maybe a recruiter that is being paid but not delivering. There is a coordinator that is actually not coordinating. There's often something that is not right. And having the percentages there will allow you to know that. But really coming right into that and saying, well, do I understand what every single line means to the top line? Does that sort of make sense? Yeah? And then getting into managing price hikes. And so we've spoken about this. So how often does everybody increase their price? Annually? Yeah? Biannually, twice a year? Yeah? And how do you guys do that? Do you mind how do you go about that? Is there a process there? We send a letter, we have a meeting?
Yeah, we give a 1 month's notice to all our clients, and we pretty much do it annually because it coincides with the local authority increases as well, so everyone's used to it at that time of year.
Great. And do you ever get pushback on that?
Very, very little.
Yeah.
I think the last price hike, we only had one client who asked the question, answered it, and he was very happy. Very happy with the service.
And is there a percentage that you tend to increase by?
We look at all our costs, we look at our projections, and we don't have a set percentage, but we also do a benchmark analysis across the market as well to see what the max is, to see where we actually want to sit in all of that.
Fantastic. And so, sorry, and I think you put your hand up earlier when you were over £30 an hour.
No.
Well, all right, so apologies. All right. Maybe after this year's price increase you will be, right? So thank you very much. That's really helpful. So I think one of the really interesting things here is that we're sending an annual price increase letter and we're really not getting any pushback, right? Because people want your service. They want your carer. They don't want to be shopping around. This isn't Apple's at Tesco's or Waitrose. This is mum, dad, at home, happy. They want to continue with that and that same person. So I would say at least once a year, we want to be increasing our prices. I would do it at very least in line with inflation, but I would probably then add some more, and it gives you some breathing space for price increases with the care workers, because that'll probably increase at a higher than inflation rate. Also thinking, well, actually, does my profitability still sit properly? am I still at circa 50% in gross profit? So gross profit is the difference between the amount that we pay the carer to the amount that we're getting from the client. And you kind of want that to be at least half. So looking at all of those things, am I increasing my prices enough? Number one. Number two, how am I managing this? Have I sent a letter? Do I need to phone someone? Is it the decision maker? Is the client the decision maker? Is it a neighbor, a friend, a sibling, a child? Who's the decision maker? Do they get it? So let's really over communicate. And also, have I explained this to the care worker? Because the last thing you want is you've just increased and gone to £32 for the first time. Care worker goes in and says, well, I didn't get an increase. So looping care workers in, explaining to them that we're doing this, this is what it means to you, and this is when we'll be reviewing your pay as well. And by doing this, there will be more meat on the bone to be able to get into that. So I would really implore you to have a written process about, well, this is what happens when we do a price increase. We send, it might even be a video email to someone or a message. It might be, however that person wants to communicate. Let's get that out there. Let's really get right behind it. Let's do it at least once a year. I mean, I would say that there's probably a conversation about doing it more often than that, quite frankly. And I would absolutely, I think one of the things that you said that was really wonderful was you do a competitor analysis. I think that's super important. And I would really be looking at the top echelon of your local care community and really look at where are they charging, and let's hang out with those guys, right? Because actually, right at the bottom, you're going to have people that are still doing it at £16, losing money, not paying care workers properly, don't want to be there. That's a race to the bottom. Let's talk about the rest of it. So I'm going to open the floor up to the group in a second. This is a book that I wrote, and it came out earlier this year, The Home Care Revolution, Time to Thrive. And all of the proceeds go to the Care Workers Charity. You can find that on Amazon. A couple of resources. So I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. I think that should take you to everywhere. Does it, Dan? Probably, right? And I put out content on YouTube about home care, about things like this, about how to build profitable businesses and so on. So please do follow along. And over to you guys. So I think we've got a mic over here. Any questions? You're gonna leave me hanging here, guys. Come on. There we go.
I guess our question is, we've just recently been awarded Outstanding.
Amazing. Round of applause to you guys. Wow.
Super proud of what we've achieved in the 4 or 5 years that we've been running home care. As somebody who's been there, done that, gone into franchising, what would be your tips to kind of start moving into that kind of model?
So are you saying you'd like to franchise your business?
Absolutely.
Great. I'm very happy to have a conversation about it. I would recommend reading a book by a gentleman called Greg Nathan, and it's called Profitable Partnerships, and also my podcast, which is called Walking with Walfinch. There's lots of franchise community there. One of the things I'd say is you, again, want a great lawyer. I can put you in touch with a couple, and probably a coach. What I would say is, what I learned about being a franchisor is that I'm no longer a care provider. They're two separate businesses. So Cam over there runs the care business. I'm really not involved in that. I look at that as a pilot system and say, right, how does that look and feel? And then I spend my day in the franchising business. So they're two separate businesses. And I think often people don't understand that. The second part of it is, I think, the investment level. I think if you're doing it well, you're probably thinking between £500,000 to £700,000 before you get into profitability is probably what you want to be spending. And really, are you properly funded for that? Or do you have a funding plan for that and getting right back into traction and that 90-day segment forecasting? But again, very happy to speak. So yeah. Any other questions? Here we go. Thank you. There you go. We've got a shy bunch over here today.
Hi. Any advice for absolute beginners in this?
Well, obviously,
Be generic or financial?
I think follow along, obviously, right? My big thing to you is I think you could be a rising star if you did number 3, which was the £1 million handshake, right? Here we go. Hi, I'm Amrit. Nice to meet you. So, and honestly, I think so many people overlook that, and we forget about the power that is held within networking. I look around the room today, Dan, the guys at Birdie, the whole community here. I've really got to know some wonderful people just from awkwardly going up to people, like, hi, I'm Amrit, But you make friends and you build, you learn, you hear what's going on. Actually, a lot of my competitors will now tell me, hey, we're charging this, what are you charging? So rather than saying, oh, my mum's looking for care, I can just ask them now, and that's really interesting. So I think if you did nothing else, if you went and spoke to as many people as you can on a daily basis forever, you will just fly. And that is, that is it. So I would, if there was one bit of advice, it would be that.
It's about who
Yeah.
and how.
So I'd start easy, go into a library, go into a pharmacy. You're not going to get rejected there, right? And then you just build your confidence, finesse your pitch, next level. It's like a computer game, right? You just keep going up a rung. Great. Good luck. We've got one in the. It's going to be a hard one. He's a clever guy.
Thank you, Anna. I'm Daniel. Thank you, Anna. That was great. I see a lot of your posts, and you go into a lot of other business areas as well and learn from other people. So one thing in the sector is not just looking in the bubble around here. So what inspirations do you draw from other franchising organisations? So you're talking a lot about how we value ourselves and what we offer here. Can you bring in some thinking from other sectors, other franchising sectors? Because I think you're brilliant on that, of looking outside the social care bubble as well. And we've got a lot to learn.
That's a really wonderful question. Thank you, Dan. So I think what Dan has really touched on there is really powerful. Now, we are very much an insular community. We don't look outside of social care. And I think when we're thinking about technology or we're thinking about service, it's really interesting. My first business was a restaurant business. And so actually I brought a lot of the learnings from a restaurant business into a home care business and ran it with that service level. So my team, and as Cam will remember from the old days, every Wednesday afternoon, it would be role plays. Everyone sits around in a huddle. I don't care if there's a safeguarding going on. We're doing a phone calls, 3 rings, we pick up the phone, how are we answering that call? And it's really getting into it. And it's really saying, well, actually, if I was a restaurant business, I'd answer the damn phone. But actually, when you think, well, that phone call might be a client that over the next 12 months generates £50,000, or a care worker that might generate, more than that, quite frankly, for you. And so really, when you think about that, it's super interesting. You think about the technology space, and you think about how they slice and dice data. I spent a bit of time in the States with franchising operations out there. We've got one last question over here. And I think one of the things I've really learned from those guys is how they slice and dice data. They'll look at everything. They'll look at, well, how many phone calls came into the business and how is that associated with how much revenue has increased? Or they'll just look at all the different things. And actually, technology is off the shelf now, is so straightforward that we can do a lot of that ourselves without being tech experts. So I think looking at other sectors and taking away one learn is really important. But also the last thing before we move on to your question is the one thing I often find is that we look at competitors and say, what are they doing really well? Let me copy that. Let's go the other way. Let's look at our competitors and say, what are they crap at? And let's do that. Oh, these guys over here, they're amazing. They charge £50 and the carers are, press shirts and all this, but they don't pick up the phone. Great, let's pick up the phone. Let's make sure after one ring we're picking up the phone. So whatever they're not good at, let's just double down on that rather than trying to be a copycat. So, last question.
Okay, bit biased, but how important is having good good supporting you when you grow? And maybe relevant to this lady's question, when should you think about getting technology when you're starting out?
So I'm not on commission. I might be actually. You never know. So where do you work, by the way?
No.
So I think technology is super important. I think if you're When I came into home care in 2012, it was wall-to-wall filing cabinet. You know, if you are not paperless today, in fact, who is not paperless today? Is anyone still using paper care plans? Is anyone lying here? You know, I'm going to shame you. Right, good. And if you are, stop it today. It's madness. Being on a paperless system, number one, means that you can operate your business from your mobile phone anywhere you want in the world. And that is super important. And anywhere you want might be 3 miles down the road at home, or it might be in Colombia, right? You know, but both those options then are available to you. Second of all, if you've got everything in a rostering system from your first hour, run your business like a £2 million business today, and it will become that. Operate it with those systems. So if you are operating it like that, you've got that data, you can immediately start slicing nice data. You know, you think about a system like Birdie, there are others available. And you can they are already doing the work in the back end of it to tell you what the data means. The Q score, for example, in Birdie, I think is really interesting. So you're looking at that and you're saying, well, actually, hold on a second. I now no longer need to forensically audit everything. I can just have a sniff test and then dig deeper, right? You know, and you can start looking at retention. You can start, you know, you have Looker, which is Google's sort of analytics piece, and it gets into it, and you can start slicing and dicing data. So I think it's tremendously important to be paperless, to be on a proper rostering system, and start thinking about data. The first thing I would say is make a pound. The second thing I would say is make sure you're operating your business like a £2 million business. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed it.